In the bullet hell-ridden world of the run-and-gun genre, few series are better known than Metal Slug. SNK's premier shooter series has left quite a war-torn legacy in its wake since the mid-90s, thanks to its frenetic gameplay, challenging difficulty, and of course, its incredibly detailed pixel art and fluid animation. But the core series of games has been rather dormant in recent years. Metal Slug 7 was the latest numbered entry, releasing back in 2008, and its upgraded port, Metal Slug XX, was released in 2009. Ports, spin-offs, and mobile titles have kept the series relevant to some degree, but speaking as a Metal Slug fan myself, it hasn't exactly been smooth sailing. That brings us to now, with the long-awaited release of the Lycar Studios' Metal Slug Tactics. First announced in 2021, I've been eager to finally play this game myself, being both a die-hard fan of the Metal Slug franchise and a lover of tactic games in general. Merging the fast-paced stylings of a run-and-gun staple might seem like an odd choice at first glance. Indeed, even I was uncertain about what form a more strategic approach to Metal Slug would look like, although I did have faith they can make it work. So if I could just preface my review by saying, I would say this team not only created a fantastic strategy game, but also one that feels distinctly Metal Slug. As is typical, Metal Slug Tactics follows the regular army's fight against General Morden and his rebel army. Morden has been in hiding since his previous defeat, taking refuge in a country opposed to the world government. And now, with new allies at his back, he's looking to take revenge. Of course, it's up to some familiar faces to take him down and restore peace to the world once more, even if it means causing some excess destruction along the way. Series frontman Marco is, of course, present and ready for duty, along with Theo, Eri, and Tarma, as you probably could have guessed. Some of the other playable characters from the franchise are here as well though, including Nadia and Trevor from Metal Slug 4, and the trio of Clark, Ralph, and Leona from Metal Slug 6, 7, and XX. It's a real treat to see them all represented here as playable units, and if it wasn't enough, several other characters from the series' history are present as NPCs. While the narrative attempts to not throw out too many references, these inclusions definitely help Metal Slug Tactics feel like a true part of the franchise. The same can be also said for the story. Metal Slug Tactics doesn't overstay its welcome with an extensive story or dialogue-heavy cutscenes. Instead, things are kept very brief and the tone is lighthearted as you might expect from a franchise that typically shies away from overarching narratives. But also fear not, because there are some achievements that unlock inter-team dialogues which do help shed a little more light on the characters we know and love, which I'm definitely a huge fan of, but these aren't core to the Metal Slug Tactics experience. It's all good stuff for fans of the series, but it's all just set dressing for the true reason we're all here. As mentioned previously, Metal Slug Tactics aims to merge the hectic run-and-gun gameplay of core games with the typically more strategic and calculating mechanics of a tactical title. Each mission of the game sees you guiding your squad across an isometric battlefield using your arsenal of weapons and skills to conquer the main objectives. These objectives can vary from simply eliminating all the enemy to surviving a certain number of turns, or even escorting an NPC to the goal. Throw in an optional but lucrative secondary objective, and that's the setup for a typical mission. Missions usually don't last more than 20 minutes, and once you get really good, you can clear them in almost less than 10. The brevity is what helps them feel so addictive, and it's a big part of why Metal Slug Tactics is so fun, regardless of how long you're playing. But that isn't to say these missions are easy, because if you aren't careful you'll quickly find yourself outmatched, as you have a limited number of HP to work with. The game makes it clear how important it is to keep your units moving each turn, and even incentivizes it. The more space is moved, the less damage your unit will take when it's attacked. Your skills are also fueled by your movement, so there's no time to be sedentary unless you want a swift path to a game over. This so perfectly evokes the run-and-gun mindset that the series is known for, and is another reason why it's such a blast to play. This approach requires you to switch up your strategy each turn, deciding whether you need to duck behind cover to avoid further damage, or if you want to go in for the kill to grab a swift victory. Then there are also these sync attacks to think of. If another unit is in range when your unit attacks, it'll trigger them to follow up, stacking up additional damage. Characters with certain abilities, like Marco, can benefit greatly from working these into your strategy, giving you more options each turn. It's perhaps not the deepest tactical gameplay ever, since you very often are going to employ the same strategies for certain mission types, but it does feel very Metal Slug at its core. Simple, but exceptionally exhilarating. You really do start to feel like a god once you know the game and its mechanics like the back back of your hand, and you not only consistently avoid damage, but you are able to kill multiple foes in a single turn with just a few well-applied abilities. If it were just left to the core mission-to-mission gameplay, Metal Slug Tactics would be perfectly enjoyable on its own merits, but the structure of the game brings it even closer to the arcade roots and even adds some roguelike flavor to the mix. Before you even start, you choose 3 characters and their loadout. Each loadout has a different set of primary and secondary weapons, along with the selection of starting abilities. Further abilities can be gained by leveling up, and your weapons can be modded if you complete certain missions, but you always have to weigh up your options as each upgrade opportunity gives you 3 possible choices to pursue. It can often be tough to decide, and at first you won't always know what's best for your run. But experimentation is key in Metal Slug Tactics and can lead to some truly incredible moments. You can get really creative with all these skills at your disposal, meaning there's always an incentive to keep on playing, even after your run ends with the game over. Because yes, if you fail a mission, you do have to start over from the very beginning, and you lose any of the mods and abilities you gained up to that point. Not only does this feel true to Metal Slug as a series, but it pushes you to think carefully about each move and each ability acquisition. But if you fail, then that's fine too. Some further experimentation will hopefully get you to the end next time. It helps that each run isn't exceptionally long either. To complete a run, you just have to liberate one of the 3 regions and then defeat Morden at his base. Do you risk trying to take him on with more limited loadout, or do you stick it out and clear the other 2 regions? Well, that's up to you. Each completed run will give you spoils to spend back at the barracks. Here you can get new potential abilities, edit your starting loadouts, and even potentially mod your weapons. Additional difficulties, which provide greater rewards, mean that if you find yourself craving even more of a challenge, then there's an option there for you. I found myself wanting to play again and again, not only for the unlocks, but just to see what new strategies I can come up with next time. Not only that, but subsequent runs also reveal additional quests for you to complete, eventually introducing new bosses to take down. A big part of the Metal Slug experience is replaying the games over and over, generating a continuous cycle of improvement. Each failure will inform your next attempt, and eventually, when you finally break through, it feels all more rewarding. Metal Slug Tactics has the ethos embedded in its core, just in a different context, and it works just as excellently here. It would be neglectful of me not to talk about the other parts of Metal Slug Tactics that stay true to its predecessors. For starters, the animation and pixel art here are outstanding and are equally cartoony, detailed, and fluidly animated as the original games. There are so many details everywhere you look, and it's obvious a lot of time and care went into creating something that was truly authentic to the Metal Slug's legacy. The music doesn't hold back either. It feels fresh but echoes the original audio, not to mention the various iconic sound effects that have found their way into the game as well. Sadly, I won't say the whole experience is flawless, as there's clearly some extra polish that can be added to the game as a whole. I encountered a few glitches here and there, although nothing game-breaking, just mildly disorienting. During the boss segments too, I found the actual hitboxes of the bosses to be a bit vague. Their attacks are well signposted, and it's easy enough to line up your shots most of the time, but it wasn't always completely clear. And after lining up my units only to find out one of them is actually in the wrong place, it bothered me for a moment. I'll concede as that one is a bit more of a nitpick, but it wouldn't hurt to get some hitbox clarity either. The variety of the missions could also use some work. While I think the length of each mission keeps them from feeling stale, it would be nice if there were a few additional mission types overall. I mostly just want more of a good thing. I want to be able to figure out even more applications for all the abilities and weapon types that I'm unlocking, but aside from that, Metal Slug Tactics really does succeed on just about every count for me. Metal Slug Tactics perhaps isn't going to revolutionize strategy games, and hardcore players might find the whole experience a bit too simple, but for me, that simplicity paired with an addictive gameplay loop, an exciting plethora of abilities to toy with, and some incredibly fun visuals make it one of the most favorite games of this year. The DNA of this run and gun genre can be found all over Metal Slug Tactics, and it combines that with strategy just so seamlessly. It feels like a union that was always meant to be. Whether you're a fan of Metal Slug, run and gun games, or tactics games, there's something here for you to enjoy. And while it might not be a proper substitute for the main series, it certainly sits alongside them as a truly amazing title. Noisy Pixel is giving Metal Slug Tactics a 9 out of 10. Thanks for watching. This video is brought to you by our supporters on Patreon. Noisy Pixel is run by a group of gamers providing independent gaming coverage through news, reviews, previews, and more. Check out our Patreon to help support our continued growth, and subscribe to keep up with all our future content.
Noisy Pixel.